So at this point right now, you have a pretty good understanding of how to create graphics inside of Illustrator, although at a very simple level, how to make selections, and how to basically work your way around the interface. Now, let's get a better understanding of the drawing model inside of Illustrator. And at the very core of that is something called the Appearance Panel. In fact, inside of Illustrator itself, I think that the Appearance Panel is probably one of the most important parts of understanding how Illustrator works. And I believe that the more that you understand about how appearances work, the easier of a time you'll have using Illustrator. So I have this file open on my screen. It's called Appearances. You'll find it inside of Chapter 8 of the exercise files. And I'm also going to go over here to the Appearance Panel. I'm actually just going to pull out the Appearance Panel so we can take a closer look at it. Let's close the graphic styles here. Let's move this down just to the side here and focus on exactly what this means here inside of the Appearance Panel. In fact, one of the great things about Illustrator CS4 is this improved Appearance Panel, which gives you far more options to work with. So first, let's understand exactly what an appearance is. As we had discussed way back in the beginning of this video title, we understand the concept of there being a path inside of Illustrator, and that path is made up of anchor points. Now the path itself is something that's there for us to see. It defines the shape itself, but if you don't have any stroke or fills applied to that particular path, then the path itself is invisible. It's only for us to see on a computer screen, but on a paper, when it gets printed out, it does not appear at all. That path or that fill attribute that you apply to a particular shape is called its appearance. However, as we'll see, there are many different attributes or things that we can do with these appearances. So let's take a closer look. I'm going to select this particular shape right here. It's just the outline of a surfboard, and I want to start to colorize this and work with this. So first of all, you don't even need to go to the control panel anymore. A lot of the settings for how you control the appearance of an object can be done directly through the Appearance Panel. This is great now inside of Illustrator CS4. In previous versions of Illustrator, the Appearance Panel showed me the settings for the appearances, but wouldn't actually allow me to edit those particular settings or make changes to them. I would need to go elsewhere. Now I can really go ahead and make all the changes right through the Appearance Panel. For example, I see right now that I have a black one-point stroke in my object and I have a white fill. Let's go ahead and change that white fill to yellow. I can click right over here on this little square and get the pop-up right here and change it to yellow. This is something that I would previously have had to gone over here in the Control Panel or into the Swatches Panel or in the Color Panel. Now I can do it right from the Appearance Panel. I also want to change my stroke weight. I'll click over here on this number over here, and I'll change it to about 20 points. So now what I have is basically a stroke that I've applied to this particular shape right here, and I also have a yellow fill. Now we know that inside of Adobe Illustrator there's this concept which we call a stacking order. Stacking order means that objects are built in some kind of a hierarchy. Things always appear either above or beneath other objects. For example, if I were to take this right now, this shape, hold down my Option key. By the way, one of the nice things about Illustrator is the keyboard shortcuts. If you hold down the Option key or the Alt key on Windows and you click and drag any particular object, that actually makes a copy of that object. Now I have two surfboards. Now this surfboard is sitting on top of the one that was there before. I could go to the Object menu and choose Arrange Send to Back, and now that particular surfboard is behind it, right? And I can always move objects either to the front or behind other objects. I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete that. One really important thing about the Appearance Panel is that Illustrator is showing me not just the fact that it has a black 20-point stroke and also yellow fill. It's telling me settings about that particular object or how Illustrator created that particular graphic. We don't really think about it in this way, but each object on its own also has a stacking order. By default, Illustrator always draws the fill first, and then it draws the stroke on top of that. Let me explain why it does that by default. Notice that when I applied this 20-point stroke, the actual weight of the stroke, or the thickness of the stroke, is distributed evenly on either side of the stroke. On the inside is 10 points, and on the outside is 10 points. Altogether, that makes up 20 points for the stroke weight here. If I were to change my stroke weight, for example, to 5 points, I would have 2.5 points of the stroke on the outside of the path, and then 2.5 points of the stroke on the inside of the path. Illustrator calls putting that on the center line of the path. There is the setting inside of the stroke panel specifically that allows it to align your stroke to all to the inside or all to the outside. But again, we'll not talk about that now. By default, and this is something that you should really kind of keep in mind, the stroke inside of Illustrator is always distributed evenly along the center line of the path. The reason why Illustrator does that is because if you would then go ahead and have your fill be painted on top of the stroke, then your fill, which comes all the way up to the edge of the path itself, would cover over the inside part of your stroke over here, so you wouldn't see the full weight of the stroke. So what Illustrator does is it paints the fill first, and then it paints the stroke on top of that, so that way none of the stroke is hidden beneath the fill itself. However, with the Appearance Panel, we see that information right here. Illustrator is not just go ahead and letting me know that it has these attributes for the fills and the strokes. It's actually telling us how that particular object was created, because the order in which the way that things appear inside of the appearance panel are extremely important. They let you know how Illustrator created that graphic. Just like as we'll see about the layers panel inside of Illustrator, everything inside of Illustrator is drawn from the bottom up. As you keep drawing new graphics, each thing that you draw that's new is basically placed at the top of the stacking order. So in Illustrator, this particular graphic was created by first applying default opacity, then Illustrator painted the yellow fill, and then Illustrator painted a 20-point black stroke. The great thing about the appearance panel, though, is that you have control over that. And if you don't like that particular setting, you can change it. You can do that by simply taking the stroke right here, clicking on that particular stroke, and dragging it now beneath the fill. By doing so now, I've changed the stacking order of the object itself. Take a look at my appearance right now. I can no longer see that 10 points of the stroke on the inside because my fill is covering that up. So the appearance panel gives me the control basically to not only see and adjust the settings for my particular appearance of my object, but I could also adjust where they sit in the stacking order for each individual object. And it's important to realize, as I press undo for a second here, that the appearance panel also has an area on the top here which we call our target. The word path right now is highlighted, kind of listed here in bold, and I see a thumbnail, basically the attributes of that particular path, the yellow fill and a black stroke. You'll notice that the target itself also appears in the upper left-hand corner. And as we go through the rest of the chapter here, we'll talk more about what targeting means. But basically, as I'm working, you'll start seeing and understanding more about targeting, more understanding about what appearances are. And now that we have just an understanding at a very basic level of why the appearance panel is important, in the next movie, we'll learn about how targeting kind of takes us to that next level.